and welcome to the ARC Breakfast. I am joined by a wonderful panel of academics from the length and breadth of the United Kingdom who've come together previously on the Success Programme and now on the ARC Accelerator. If you are watching from YouTube, please do click the join in button to join us and be able to participate in our Q&A. Really, the format for today, please do get involved. Give us some questions in the Q&A. What will happen is I'm going to ask each of our amazing colleagues to talk a little bit about their venture and talk a little bit about who they are and what they're doing. And then we'll open it up for Q&A more generally from me and from you guys. So with no further ado, I want to kick this off with Dr. Amol Deshmukh. I do have to note, it is Amol's birthday today. Happy birthday for everyone at Aspect, Amol. And please do take it away.
Okay, great. Thanks a lot for the introduction and for the wishes. I am delighted to be on this call and virtually meet everyone here. So a quick introduction about myself. I am Dr. Amol Deshmukh. I'm a researcher at University of Glasgow and at the School of Psychology. And I'm also the founder of WallBo. WallBo is a social venture from the University of Glasgow, and our vision is to revolutionize hand washing for children in schools using our social robotic platform, WallBo. The two key problems we are addressing through WallBo is children lack interest and know how to wash their hands regularly. Schools also find it very difficult to monitor and train hand washing at scale, which is done manually currently. And this can lead to poor hand hygiene, resulting in spread of COVID from children to vulnerable populations, absenteeism at schools, parents who have to take time off work to take care of the sick child, high healthcare costs, and at worst, severe infections and deaths. So our solution, WallBo, is a portable social robotic platform that you can easily install near a hand washing station, and it can monitor, teach, and train hand washing for children in schools. WallBo basically enhances the Hawthorne effect, which means people change their behavior when they know they are being watched. So WallBo can watch and track people and provide feedback using evidence-based behavioral science and artificial intelligence. We have done some trials in the UK and India and found 40% improvement on hand hygiene compliance, also up to 90% compliance during one-to-one training with WallBo. Kids love WallBo, and also we've got some positive feedback from the teachers from schools and received global media attention, including multiple awards. The business proposition we are developing is to sell these units to developed countries, schools in developed countries, and also for developing countries via partnerships and sponsorship deals with stakeholders. Since we won the third prize at the Success competition last year, we have a team of technical developers, business advisors, mentors, and partners. So that was a quick overview about WallBo, and I'll be happy to answer any questions you have during the panel, and feel free to get in touch with me later. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much, Amol. So next up, who I would like to speak is Hibbah from the University of Sheffield. Hibbah, can you tell us about your venture?
Yes, please. Good morning, everyone. My name is Dr. Hibbah Araba Osei-Kwasi. I'm a postdoctoral researcher at the University of Sheffield. My background is in public health nutrition, and I'm the founder of Sahara Nutrition. Now, Sahara Nutrition is a social enterprise, and it comprises Black nutrition professionals like, nutritionists, dietitians, researchers, and lecturers, as well as community groups. Our network, or Sahara Nutrition's goal, is to provide tailored support to Africans and Caribbeans in Greater Manchester, but also, beyond, UK-wide, through workshops, seminars focused on promoting a healthier lifestyle. Before the onset of the pandemic, every now and then, we had invitations to do talks, in churches and, by Black organizations. But after I got enrolled into the first ACT program, we formalized it and actually created a social network. You know, even though we are not registered yet, we got recognition. I'm sorry, I have a little one here that I'm presenting with. Yeah, apologies for the interaction. Sorry. Yeah, so since March 2020, we've done a lot of collaboration with Black organizations like Caribbean and Health Network. We present on, or we do shows on radios, Black-owned media in Greater Manchester. We also we still do talks in Black churches, you know, faith-based organizations. As Black nutrition professionals, we recognize that a lot of the guidelines and interventions in the UK are not tailored towards ethnic minorities. So this is what Sahara Nutrition is about. You know, we want to have tailored and culturally sensitive interventions to support the Black community. And that is what we are championing. We've managed to bring lots of Black professionals, and we are mentoring nutritionists and dietitians who want to build cultural competence in order to be able to work with ethnic minorities in the UK. So I'm happy to take questions at the end, and yeah, feel free.
Thank you very much, Hibbah, with guest starring from from a little one. So last but not least, from our first success cohort, it's Dr. Nai Rui Chng, who's going to talk a little bit about his venture, Good Evaluation.
Thanks, Morven. Good morning, everyone. So my name is Dr. Nai Rui Chng. I'm a political scientist, and I work on the development and evaluation of complex interventions in the health, social, and environmental policy domains. And I work at the Social and Public Health Sciences Unit, also at the University of Glasgow. I'm also the co-founder and director of Good Evaluation. Now, Good Evaluation is a social enterprise that believes in the power of evaluation to do good for society. We use evaluation science and thinking to develop and improve solutions which advances the health and well-being of people and society. So service providers, funders, and policymakers, they can often find evidencing that their programs and policies are achieving their desired impact to be very challenging. So we support our clients to ensure the effective implementation of their solutions, help them to save costs, and also ultimately help them to achieve the social impact that they desire with robust evaluation design support. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Nai. And now we're going to move on to our ARC cohort, the first of whom is Professor Rob Klassen from University of York.
Thanks, Morven. Right, so I'm Rob Klassen from the University of York in the Department of Educational Psychology, and our venture is called the Teacher Selection Project, and it's designed to improve the teacher workforce. So for the last 8 years, we've been working on developing better teacher selection methods, and we've worked in lots of countries around the world. And in the UK, we select about 40,000 future teachers each year, but around the world, there's an enormous need for teacher recruitment. UNESCO's called for nearly 70 million new teachers by 2030. And they're important decisions, and each selection decision costs a lot of money in terms of careers, and it's a 35-year commitment. So making good selection decisions really matters. And the problem that we addressed is that most of the current methods in education are what is best described as ad hoc and information poor. And they're not as effective as those in other fields like medical education or the civil service. And there's been little research done on these topics. Our own recently published study shows that selection methods tend to be expensive, and they're not very predictive of the desired outcomes. And so we need to do better than that. And our solution at the Teacher Selection Project, we offer better ways to select new teachers using research-proven methods. We've done a lot of research in this area, and we wanted to find the best way to deliver impact based on our research. And we think that we can achieve this through forming a commercial venture. So our tools assess soft skills using classroom simulations. And we have two primary tools that we've been developing. One's called T-Screen, which judges the developmental path of future teachers before entering training. And it uses a situational judgment test methodology that gives scoring profiles. And we have T-Insight, which is used for developing future teachers. And it places trainees virtually into realistic classroom situations and provides real-time feedback. We've already started to grow. We started out in the wilds of Yorkshire, working with local teacher training programs, but now we've worked with lots of different teacher training providers and with some government ministries and with some NGOs and charities. And we've tested our tools on over 80,000 prospective teachers. So we're ready to transform the teacher workforce, and with the help of training from ARC, we're moving from focusing solely on research activities and moving towards disseminating our work around the world through a new commercial venture. So thanks very much and look forward to your questions.
Cool. Thank you very much, Rob. Next up is Professor Michael Bruter from LSE, who's going to talk a little bit about his venture.
Good morning. I am indeed Michael Bruter. I'm a professor of electoral psychology at the LSE. And I'm the co-founder of Codes, which aims to be a collaborative democracy tool. I know you hear the word revolution a lot today, but that's very much what ARC is also about. So the idea at the heart of Codes is that the most precious commodity of them all is human thought. And when consultative and democratic systems fail to capture opinions that exist and which matter to people, we waste democratic will, we make the wrong decisions, we lose trust, compliance, and ultimately we may even face chaos. So on top of that, people do invest a lot of money in trying to capture this thought. A UK general election, for instance, costs over £140 per taxpayer. And at the same time, both institutions and citizens are very unhappy with what they get. So when you organize a consultation, only 5% of the people invited take part because they tell us they cannot say what they really want. And the objective of Codes is to enable public and private bodies to derive meaning from what seems to be a sea of noise, engage citizens, and create collaborative decision-making. To figure out how best to do that, we conducted 102 interviews in 15 countries. We conducted 2 mass surveys, and we did 4 in-depth focus groups. And as a result, we found from both users and citizens what they wanted us to do. And they wanted the tool to have no more bias. They wanted a unique human-led clear box artificial intelligence concept. They wanted features like demographic and regional breakdown, social media extensions, voice recognition. They wanted a modular tool which would result in ongoing engagement and collaboration between citizens and institutions. And they wanted a tool which would not just analyze insights, but translate them into collective decisions. And this is what we have created in order to launch that collaborative democracy revolution, a 6-step systematic, interactive and modular process of coding, confirming, aggregating, and achieving decision out of people's open-ended contributions. We've presented our to potential customers across countries, and not only did we get enthusiastic feedback, but 5 major institutions have already asked us to send them formal proposals. And that's the New Zealand Parliament, the South African Parliament, the Welsh Government, the Council of Europe, and the EU. We didn't even have to convince the people that there is a need for Codes because that's something they knew already. We are meeting an urgent market gap, and our customers have not only identified it, but they feel frustrated by it, and they want it urgently resolved, which is where we come in. Our team includes 3 internationally recognized scholars and AI partners. We've won awards such as the Market Research Society Award for Best International Research, and we have a prestigious and steady consultancy portfolio advising over a dozen democratic governments, electoral commissions, international organizations, the EU, British Council, and so on. Now, of course, we know that great research is not enough to guarantee a great product, but it's a prerequisite. And what happens here is that the very people we want to convince to use Codes are already trusting us to diagnose their problem. And now what we want to do is convince them that we've got the right solution for them. So ultimately, the idea is that codes will engage citizens, transform crucial opinions that exist into powerful, accurate, and transparent collective decisions. But the ambition is even more than that. What is really important to us is to reinvent the relationship between institutions and citizens, collaborative democracy. And our belief, our perhaps pretentious belief, is that before long, codes will revolutionize decision-making the way Google has revolutionized searching. So thanks, and again, I'll be more than happy, like my colleagues, to answer any questions in the Q&A.
Perfect. All right. Thank you very much, Michael. And last but certainly not least is Sarah. And then following Sarah's introduction to her venture, we'll be opening up for questions. I see one question has already appeared in the Q&A. But following that, we will be able to have a bit more of a chat with all of our participants. So Sarah, if I can ask you to take it away.
Okay, good morning, everybody. My name's Sarah Ward, and I'm the founder of Children's Voices, which is a research tool to ask children to articulate their concerns for social change in areas of high poverty, with the goal of giving children a voice in the decisions that concern their lives in terms of policies and services. So the problem that the tool aims to address is that in the UK, 1 in 3 children are living in poverty, which is 4.3 children at a cost of £29 billion per year. And for those children, the kinds of issues they're up against are food banks, drug and alcohol addictions, poor health and lack of opportunities in their communities. And this is likely to result, we know, in poor qualifications, unemployment, poor mental and physical health, and the ultimate injustice, potentially a shorter lifespan. So what we're aiming at Children's Voices is to create an alternative to that, a society where children in poverty are listened to and where they have a voice, and where they're valued as experts with the answers, some of the answers that we need to address the injustice of child poverty. So we've created a tool and training program that offers a high quality, engaged and scalable way for funders and decision makers to ensure that children's priorities are at the forefront in addressing child poverty. Our program offers a survey, stakeholder interviews and 8 qualitative workshops that can be used with children aged 7 to 18. And the program generates a well-being framework and action plan for change to inform policy briefings and reports and proposals for action with local authorities, third sector organisations and funding stakeholders. So why does voice matter? Well, the reasons are threefold. First, giving children the chance to think and speak about what's important to them gives them vital life skills, increases their confidence and makes them better able to have a say over their lives, supporting them to become agents of change themselves. Also, enabling children in poverty to be part of the solution allows more informed and effective decisions to be made by funders and policymakers. And finally, more and more countries around the world are recognizing the importance of child voice. 14 countries have now taken the pioneering step to incorporate the UN Convention on the Rights of the Child into their national law, and they're looking for ways to operationalize that legal commitment. So during our 3-year pilot, which has been funded by the Scottish Government, we've been using Children's Voices to work with 3 different local authorities across Scotland, delivering our programme. We've also recently been asked to trial the model in Chile as part of an educational partnership there. And we've also had interest from key funders such as Children in Need, Barnardo's and the Hunter Foundation charity, who are all looking for ways that they can align and demonstrate the value of their projects with the priorities of children and young people in poverty. So our model is based on 3 elements: direct delivery and consultancy, offering bespoke programme design based on the Children's Voices research model. Secondly, an online tool and webinar delivered at a cost of £5,000 per programme, training up to 20 staff and including data analytics and reporting. And finally, a license at a cost of £600 per year, offering membership of a cloud-based software tool, promotional animation and ongoing training. This is our team. We've been running the 3-year research pilot for Scottish Government, myself, Claire Binner and Maureen McBride. We're experts on participatory research with children, and most of all, fully committed to addressing child poverty by giving excluded young people the chance to really participate in decision making. Thank you very much.
So thank you very much all for giving us a very short flavour of what your ventures are all about. So as I mentioned at the beginning of the broadcast, this is a mixture of the previous success cohort, the first ever social science commercialisation cohort to go through an accelerator programme, and the second cohort called the ARC Accelerator. Now we're going to open it up more to the floor for questions and for me to delve a little bit into kind of the common challenges around social science commercialisation, ways that the ARC Accelerator may have helped and ways that we might be able to help in the future. I'm going to take one of the questions that has been asked in the Q&A, so please do ask questions in the Q&A and I will do my best to pick them all up. But the first question is directly to Rob, but actually I think has applicability across all of our participants here. And that's around the navigation of relationships with existing stakeholders, moving from a research project into a commercial offering, and how you manage that process and that transition period to make sure that the customer is happy, that the university is happy, and that you as the new venture are happy. And I'm going to throw it to Rob first off, but please do, other panelists, jump in if you've got some nuggets of gold to share with our audience here. Rob?
Thanks. That's such a good question, because this was such a big deal for us when we started out. When you're doing research, you tend to give away things for free. And so, you know, there's a lot of recipients who are very happy to work with you for free, and because they get your expertise and we get the benefits of working with great partners, and it's kind of a testing space. And I remember writing a contract a couple of years ago for a research contract with a partner. And in it, we said something like, oh, in the future, we might commercialize this. And so, you know, this will end at a certain date. And I remember feeling so, not quite ashamed, but like, oh, I can't believe I'm writing about commercialization. I'm a researcher, you know, this just feels dirty. And now now I totally get it. But our relationships, like when we've developed tools, you know, we need funding to develop these things, and it's about continuing this relationship. You know, our research funding that we were relying on ends at a certain period, and after that period, we can't do this for free. And so it's important that, you know, if they value the work that we've done, and if your partners do, this is a new way of working, but it's completely reasonable and sensible that there needs to be funding coming into our team to pay for people who are working with us. And so I think it's been good. And the people we work with, it feels quite natural now that we can address this. It didn't feel natural a couple of years ago. It felt really awkward to me anyways. So anyways, I think that's our existing relationships. We've kind of dropped hints all along that, oh, our research funding will end. We need to look at different ways of continuing this work if you would like to continue to work with us on these things. So I hope that explains that a little bit.
The panel have any other comments that they'd like to make? Because it is a tricky subject, right? It's very difficult sometimes to move from a research relationship into a more commercial relationship. And as Rob pointed out, sometimes that can feel a little bit uncomfortable. Michael, I see you. Oh, sorry, Sarah, beg your pardon, go for it.
No, I was just going to say, just to echo Rob's point, that I think it's about a shift in mindset from thinking about, you know, grants being the only kind of acceptable source of income, which is quite a common feeling, I think, in academia. And certainly I felt really uncomfortable with the idea that, you know, I might be sort of succumbing to the evils of capitalism by setting up a business. And I still struggle with that. But, you know, I found it much more comfortable thinking about it in terms of a not-for-profit, which is the model that I've gone for. But also, as Rob says, you know, in other fields, it's completely, you know, some of the third sector organizations that we work with, they expect to get income in lots of different forms, and it's not an issue for them. But in academia, somehow I think there's a lot of suspicion about, you know, the idea of commercializing in social sciences. So for me as well, it's been a bit of a journey of, you know, just realizing that actually you can do some really interesting stuff, and commercialization can add more rigor to your research as well, which can only be a good thing.
Great. Anybody else want to jump in there with any further comments?
Just a quick one, maybe. I just think the best way to address it, because you know what Rob described, I think is what all of us have been feeling at one point or another, not just towards the people we want to sell things to, but even towards colleagues as well, because you know commercialization can very much have a stigma in academia. I think the best way to think of it is to put things the other way around. And what that means is that, you know, many of us have had research grants before, and research grants are not there for us to offer for free things which have a commercial value to users. That's not what they aim to do, and that's not what they're allowed to do most of the time. And I think that the best way to think about commercialization is that the right people should be paying for the right thing. In other words, when we try to do something which is very general, very much a principle, then this has to be sponsored by existing research schemes, because that's what they intend to do. But when people feel that there is a use that they can make of what we've been coming up with, and that this is something they want for themselves in order to improve their own processes or outcomes and so on, then they should be the one paying for it rather than the taxpayer. And I think that's the way we should really be thinking about it.
And do you feel, this is you in general, do you feel like the Accelerator program helped with some of that transformation in thinking and in, I suppose, reconceiving of how you perceive this project, whatever project or venture that you are creating? Rob, I see you smiling, so I'm going to pick on you.
Just like, oh my goodness, yes. I mean, it was like, you know, these are not thoughts that most academics think about, like, oh, you know, how should we package this and how should we, you know, charge for this and so forth. It's not something that we tend to think about. And in the ARC Accelerator program, it's just kind of a matter of course. This is, if you know you have something that is going to have a positive impact on society and you need to get funding for it, then, you know, this is one way to do it. And it's, yeah, it takes a lot of the stigma away. And I kind of now expect my colleagues think the same way. And I'm sure they don't, but, you know, like, at least in my close circle, you know, we've had lots of discussions and ARC has been really instrumental in that. But it's not yet widespread throughout social sciences, that's for sure.
Nai, Philip.
Yeah, I just sort of come on to that. I think the program success when we were involved now called ARC, it really helped me to just think differently about so-called end users of our research. So previously, you know, they were almost like an afterthought. We disseminate the results of our research through papers, maybe write a policy report at best. But I think using commercialization as a framework and thinking, starting with thinking from how people who use our research will actually benefit from our service or product, and really thinking about what the customer's problem is, I think it has really changed the way I think about my research fundamentally.
Amol, do you have anything you'd like to add in there?
I think the other panelists have covered most of the points I wanted to say. I mean, we are still pre-revenue, so it's difficult for me to answer accurately if how we managed to navigate from going from our mindset from research as dissemination to commercializing and selling our products and services to potential stakeholders. But it's a challenging thing, not just from our perspective, but also from the stakeholders' perspective. When you go in and you want to do some trials as a research project, the perception is different. But when you want to sell your service or product to the same stakeholders, their perception can change, and you can get some challenges to navigate through that process. So it's important that you make sure that you lay down the processes for the stakeholders to identify what value you are delivering, and if they are willing to pay for that value for your product or service.
And I suppose picking up on something that both Nai and Rob mentioned, and to some extent Michael, I suppose I'm thinking about the shift in perception and trying to think about that on a countrywide, United Kingdom-wide scale, and thinking about social science commercialisation, which is in its infancy, and how we encourage that, and how, I suppose, how you guys form part of the way forward, right? Like you are the pioneers of social science commercialisation, both in your institutions and nationally. I suppose I'm thinking about how you feel that social science commercialisation is being received within your institution. Do you think that more colleagues might become interested in this over the next while as they see the great work that you guys are doing, as they see the possibilities of commercialisation? I sound like an evangelist to some extent. I am. I'm not going to make bones about that. But I suppose, how do you feel like that conversation is going, and where do you think that we are experiencing a kind of groundswell of people who are interested in and seeing the possibilities of dissemination and impact that Rob talked about?
Well, I'll just say like a couple of things. First, I just remember a colleague developed a really useful tool a couple of years ago, a little app for language learning. And when we talked about commercialization, she said, "Oh no, I'm not going to charge for this." But, the app died because there's no funding coming in. And so that's like a sad thing. And this was maybe 4 years ago. And I thought, yeah, of course, why would you charge for it? But I would say that now in my university, I think most universities in the UK, I think there's a lot of goodwill and a lot of good intentions and support in general, but the mechanisms take a little longer to follow, or the processes to how to bring funding in, how to pay people, how to keep funds over, like in our case, at the end of the financial year is July 31st, and funds like consultancy and so forth all get spent up then, and you can't use them in August. So that's not helpful if you have a commercial venture. But I think the universities, at least our university, is working hard to try to make this easier and to make this work. And there's lots of goodwill, but again, the details are kind of following behind that.
I think it's incredibly useful to show the progress of different ventures as they develop. Certainly for me, that was probably one of the main things that really kept me going. Was I saw a venture that I really, really liked, which was In Place of War, which is in Manchester, which was came from the University of Manchester, I think. But as a result of hearing about that venture and being really inspired, I thought, oh, okay, so they've done it this way. They've done it a little bit differently from how I imagined this would work. And they've managed to combine it with generating research grant income as well. And yeah, I think it's really important to see different examples of how people are going forward with their ventures, and how you don't necessarily have to give up on an academic career, or, you can balance your venture with other pieces of work as well. And so that, for me, that was definitely a big inspiration. So I think that going forward, it's really important to have lots of different examples like that, that resonate with people and that people can learn from too.
Yeah, Michael, go for it.
I mean, I don't really like the evangelist comparison, in the sense that, to me, not all research is bound to lead to commercialization, in exactly the same way that, as head of research in my department for a while, I've always said that even though I want the people who want to get research grants to be able to do so, not everybody needs a research grant either. I think the real problem we face is that in the academic sphere, the entire language of commercialization has been tailored towards non-social scientists. In other words, commercialization in universities is not something new by any means, but it's something which has been really worked around the needs of people who worked in medical schools, in engineering schools, in computer schools, in a whole range of areas which substantively have got very different ways of doing things and produce very different knowledge and tools than social scientists. And I think that from that point of view, what I see more as our mission, at least in the immediate future, is to ensure that the people who organize commercialization or who try to facilitate commercialization for social scientists understand that social scientists can have different needs and a different toolbox. And that's where ARC has been absolutely invaluable, because obviously you've started being able to create a tool which is for social scientists to learn. So between ourselves, we can actually agree on what we do. But I think that to take that knowledge and that understanding and translate it in words that can be understood to people beyond the social sciences is the hard bit. Because at the moment they all say, oh yeah, we want more social science commercialization. Please do. But then when you try to go for it, you have to tick boxes which were never intended for you. And I think that what ARC is enabling us to do collectively is perhaps to channel those different needs and that different identity of research with commercial potential to universities and as well as potential customers.
I just want to lend my support to what Michael said. I think that is such an important point. I think there's a tremendous opportunity for us, whether we think of ourselves as pioneers or as guinea pigs, to come up with new ways of thinking, a new language, new concepts to think about how the social sciences, this broad umbrella, can make use of commercialization pathways if the researchers choose to do so. It should not be something that's imposed, but it should be there as an additional way to do social science research. And that's a very exciting proposition.
Great. Okay. Hibbah, I wondered if you had something you might want to add here?
Yeah, I think a lot has been said already. Personally, I think I'll just share my own experience. So unlike most of the people who were in my cohort, Sahara Nutrition started when Success Now ARC started last year, and for me, the rate at which we have grown, it's really, really something that it's encouraging. I've had lots of people contacting me and showing interest in, the next time we're going to have another call, and for people like me who have always done research in nutrition, this has really opened our eyes as to what else we can do, just like other people had already mentioned. For the longest time, all I knew was research, and I couldn't see myself doing anything else apart from research. Now, there was a question in the box to ask whether, what was the question again? But I'm actually even thinking that in the future, I might want to do this more than the research. I'm actually really thinking about maybe going into this, spending more time in doing this. Okay, there was also another question that I wanted to touch on. Someone asked whether this was dissemination or impact. I think it's, for us, it's a combination of the two, because I've always published. So it's dissemination and impact beyond publication. If I would say it's beyond publication, because now my research has always been on ethnic minorities, but then I was always presenting at conferences and the message was not getting to the people who mattered. These people don't come for our conferences. So I feel like this is an opportunity to actually make real impact beyond academia, because the people we present to don't really, not that they don't need the research, but it doesn't impact them very well like the people in the grassroots. And I think that this is an opportunity to actually make a difference in the world beyond research publication and conferences.
Thank you very much, Hibbah. And to go back to one of the questions in the chat, I suppose one of the things that has come up from this is how do you see your ventures progressing? Do you see yourselves as spinning out of the university? Do you see yourselves then as it were, having a foot in both camps, being kind of researcher part-time, as a bit oxymoronic, never mind, and do you think that then you could be part of your spin-out? How do you see that working? Because as somebody else has noted, I think in the Q&A, sometimes in a STEM discipline, what may happen is upon commercialisation, a management team is put around a technology, and then the spin-out works with that team, with that intellectual property, and with that knowledge base. And it works a little bit differently potentially in social science commercialisation, when there may be an element of consultancy that perhaps is know-how inside researchers' brains, right? So what mix do you see? Because some of you, I think, have more ability to kind of to put your venture out there and then perhaps take a step back, and some of you may have less desire to do so, just as in the STEM disciplines. So I'd be really interested in your thoughts about how you see that moving forwards, given that all of you are at different places in the commercialization journey.
Can I just comment briefly on that? So we've had some discussions, we've had some back and forth regarding this, and just in the last few weeks, I've just had an email to say that I'm allowed to, because I wanted to register this, to be able to take it forward. So unlike most of the ventures, but I have been allowed to the freedom to create the project as a sole entity owner. So the team, we have that freedom now to go ahead and do that. So it's not really going to be a spin-off of University of Sheffield, even though it's part of the story. That's where I worked, that's where I studied. We are yet to have detailed discussions on the IP, because we need to finalize that as well. But yeah, I can go ahead and register it, not as a spin-off, because I think for me, my current contract with University of Sheffield ends very soon. So I'm just doing a postdoctoral research. So the question was, what happens if I leave? So I guess that's why I've been given the freedom to register it.
Interesting. Yeah, I mean, I think there are a huge diversity of experiences, given the huge diversity of universities that are represented both in the ARC and the Success cohorts. They all have different policies, and also each spin-out is different from each university, right? It doesn't matter where the spin-out comes from in terms of the university. Each one is its own unique little proto-venture, so it all needs its unique support around it. So Michael, what's your plans for next, and what does that look like for you as a researcher?
Well, I think you've said it exactly right. I mean, every venture is unique. I mean, one thing to bear in mind as well, I mean, the rule of the game is that each time today one of us is speaking in the name of a venture, but as you've seen in every single presentation, behind each venture is a team, not a single person. And knowing how we progress is also a team question and not just an individual question. It's perfectly possible that within a team, there might be one person who would like to get a lot more involved in the commercial process, and others who only see it as a way to further the reach of the research they've been doing, but really want to be in academics and have as little to do as possible in a way with the running of a commercial venture. I mean, bear in mind that a venture is not just an idea, and there are many things which, as academics, even after the brilliant ARC training, we are not necessarily equipped to do in terms of management and stuff like that. I mean, this is not, you give us the basics to make sure that we don't do something wrong. But very often, the first thing we learn is that we need to get somebody competent to do those things because we wouldn't be able to do them well ourselves. So in the case of code specifically, the way I mentioned it in the presentation was actually, absolutely honest. I really see the fundamental research we do, the consulting we do, and the innovation, which is codes, as 3 building blocks to take our research always further. The fundamental research is about exploring new ideas, breaking new borders, taking risk as well. I mean, research gives us the luxury to fail in a way which would not entirely be possible in an innovation venture. Consulting is about using our skills, in our case, to diagnose problems. And innovation is our attempt to see if we can provide the right solution to the problems we've diagnosed. And we want that to be successful, and we want to continue resolving more problems. So we are sending out proposals now, and they are relatively expensive proposals. I mean, that's another thing which I hope the audience will get, because I think the way you've picked the different ventures, apart from the diversity in topics, I think that it was another great form of diversity, which is that you've got a whole range of ventures, from some which sell stuff for £1,000 a piece to ones which sell things for £1 million a piece. And there can be room for both types of things, things which can be more expensive with a smaller market, things which can be more expensive, less expensive, but have a bigger market. And in our case, we're going to try and see if we can actually finalize the working prototype with early adopters, and then try to change the way democracy is implemented in a number of major countries. So that's the exciting part, which is starting now.
Fantastic. I'm very conscious of time. And one of the things that I really wanted to get your thoughts on is, as we are looking at expanding the ARC Accelerator, as we're looking at different ways that we can engage, different ways that the aspect can engage, how do you all feel, how could we do that better? Do you feel like there are parts of the ARC Accelerator? Michael, you have been more than complimentary, so I'm going to really take that and say thank you to the ARC Accelerator. But I suppose, what ways do you think the ARC Accelerator kind of helped all of you, and what ways do you think that following that you can build on it and need further experience? So Michael talked about kind of bringing in different management people, for instance, that can support the business and help it grow to the next level and to scale, if scalability is something that the venture requires. But I suppose I'm going to throw that open to the floor as a mixture of thoughts and comments, I suppose, rather than a pure distilled question. Sarah.
I think one of the things for me is that I've really learned to feel okay about feeling a bit uncomfortable or a bit, having a lot to learn about commercialization. And each stage of development for me, it's been a really intense process, and we've had a huge amount of support and input, which has been really, really valuable on the program. But I think at each stage I've thought to myself, I don't know how this is going to work. I don't know how. Just every stage has felt like a big learning curve for me. And I think what's really important about it is that I think is probably what entrepreneurship is about, in a sense. And one of the biggest things I take away from the program is realizing that there are usually ways to figure out things that seem insurmountable or difficult or unknown. And going forward, I think that's one of the important things I'll take away, is that, when you carefully work through and look at the other examples out there of how to do things, there are always solutions and ways to do things that you feel comfortable and happy with. And I think, I feel like it is really just the start of the journey, in terms of actually setting up a new organization and all that will bring. But yeah, I think that's been, and also the fact that you can get so much really valuable support from other people who have experience in lots of different ways, and that universities have a lot of that, you know, available as well in-house. So I think, yeah, for me, reaching out and getting the support that you need and the expertise that you need, not expecting to have to do it all or be an expert, like Michael was saying, you know, there are areas that we as researchers aren't necessarily going to be the best at, but there's, you know, there are ways to bring in that expertise to your organization. And if you've got a passion, I think if you've got a real passion to do something, that's what will see you through. And, you know, I think what ARC gives you is a kind of launch pad and the confidence to realize that, you know, so if you hang on to what you feel strongly about and what you think is really valuable to be out there in the world, I think you'll get there, is my hope.
Hi.
Hi, can I say something? Also in relation to a question about whether commercialization may be yet another task that researchers are burdened with. I think there's a big danger that it may practically become that way for some individuals. Speaking personally, the biggest challenge I have is really my own time to develop this. Now, I think that the support that both my university and the program, the support that they have given me through expertise, through resources and help has been absolutely tremendous. And I'm aware that it is such a luxury that other entrepreneurs in the private sector can only dream of, to get this kind of support. And I'm very grateful for that. And yet at the same time, there are all these other things that I have to do as an academic: knowledge exchange, impact, teaching, etc. Many of us are on project funding. Many of us work part-time with other responsibilities. I think that is a big challenge, especially for more junior researchers, where they don't really have control or autonomy over their own time to develop good research ideas in you know, down commercialization pathway.
Thank you, Nai. Amol?
Yeah, I'll just have a quick comment because I'm conscious of time as well. So from my experience participating in the Success program last year, it was really a kind of enlightenment for me, because I was starting to think from changing from thinking purely from a research perspective to like a business perspective. And I think what helped me the most was connecting with other people in the cohort. So that gave me some kind of confidence that they are in the same boat as me, and they are also trying to commercialize their research. So it was helpful in a way where I got out of my comfort zones, not thinking down because I'm not able to put myself up to the level of what an entrepreneur needs. So it was really useful to have a wide variety of support. I wish it was in person. We are doing it virtually now, but it was a tremendous opportunity for me to network with so many amazing people and also get inspired from them. So that was the biggest positive for me.
Rob, do you have anything you want to add here?
Sure, just briefly that, you know, this is the benefits of ARC or programs like it is that you're learning something new. And it's, you know, at my stage in my career, I don't very often learn new techniques or approaches or research methods and so on. So, you know, you kind of get entrenched and so on. So I think that's the challenge and the advantage of a program like this. It helps you kind of go through learning something that's really hard and really huge and different. And so that's the real benefit of it, is that you kind of have a lot of support to learn something that really is out of your comfort zone. And so I think that's been really helpful. This kind of program allows you to kind of approach something that's really challenging and quite out of your normal comfort zone.
Okay, thank you. So, like Amol, I am hopeful that maybe next year we might all be able to meet in real life. That would be novel, right? And I suppose I'm gonna wrap up just now, but I just wondered if there's any final comments from the panel. Anyone who'd want to make a final last intervention. I'm gonna give you a quick 15 seconds if you'd like to say anything else. If not, then thank you again to all our amazing ARC and Success panelists. You've been incredible. Your ventures are amazing. I am so looking forward to the next 3 to 5 years to see where all of you end up and the impact that you're all able to generate. Thank you to our audience for watching and for participating, for sending in us in your questions. If you've got any questions directly to the participants, I'm going to volunteer that you can email them directly. They'd be delighted to have a chat about their venture, any ways that you might be able to support their venture, or think about new links that you might want to draw with your institution. Oh, didn't manage to say that properly, with your institution. But all it behoves me to say is thank you so much, and stay tuned for the ARC Accelerator finale, which is next Wednesday. Please do come to the showcase where there will be a wonderful diversity of people to see. Thanks.